Welcome to the Smart Driving Cars podcast. We appreciate you taking the time to be with us, and we aim to make it time well spent and have an important guest once again joining us. This edition is sponsored by the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. For more information, head to motoetf.com. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with the Faculty Chair of Autonomous Vehicle Engineering at Princeton University, Alan Kornhauser. Hi again, Alan.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
And we are happy to have with us Kelly Funkhauser. Kelly is the head of Connected and Automated Vehicle Testing at Consumer Reports. Thanks for being with us, Kelly.
I'm happy to be here.
Kelly, let's start out with an overview of the work that you and your team are doing with connected vehicles and autonomous testing there. A lot of us don't know too much about it, so fill us in.
Yeah, so what might surprise many of the listeners is that this technology is rolling out to consumer available vehicles very, very quickly, to a lesser degree, of course, but some of the building blocks of autonomous vehicles, such as trying to keep the car in the center of the lane, as well as do the automated adaptive cruise control, are really kind of the two main elements to have a self-driving car. And what we're finding is that adaptive cruise control and lane keeping assistance systems are in almost every vehicle as at least an option among all of the major manufacturers in the United States. And so what we do at Consumer Reports is we evaluate those systems on quite a few different scales. We look for not only the performance, how well they do what they claim to do, but also the safety of them. So not only do they provide safety, but also are there safeguards in place to help the driver so that they don't misuse or over-rely on these systems as they are trying to use these systems potentially towards self-driving. So here at Consumer Reports, we test every vehicle that comes through here, which are more than 50 a year. We test the ADAS systems and look at kind of where the state of the market is. And we're seeing these rolling out very, very quickly. And the line is becoming more and more blurred between where the driver is responsible and where the vehicle is now pretty good and good enough to kind of take over, and what those consequences are.
Yeah, and really important stuff.
It's extremely important, and we can't thank you enough for doing this, because it really is important. There's been so much, let's say, Sunday supplement confusion out there in terms of this technology, and the perception that's put out there is that it can do everything, and in fact it can't. But it can do some very good things for us. At least that's what I think. It can do some very good things. What I've done in the past to try to get around this is I really put these technologies into two different buckets. I put one bucket, which is really, I call them safe driving cars. What are they? They're the driver assistance sort of things. The driver support exactly the things that you're testing, which is one sort of thing. And then there are the driverless things, the things that would actually drive something without us being there, that do a whole different thing for a whole different purpose for over here. And one really can't conflate them. Even though the things that you have over here do help out over here, they really aren't the same. And it's very important to keep them separate, and very important to look at what each one is doing and whether or not they're doing what they're supposed to do for the benefit. And again, on the one hand, it's to help us when we're driving our own car. In the other hand, it's to provide mobility to us and everybody else to be able to get from A to B, because we either can't or don't want to or whatever drive our own cars. Those are very different markets. They can't be confused, even though one needs the pieces of the other. And so and in some sense, some of the folks that want to do the driverless piece poo-poo oh my goodness, it's only for consumers to help them drive. Bull, if it can't do that well, how in the heck could it ever do this other piece? And so what you're doing with respect to this piece over here is exceedingly important. So let's focus on that and tell us, because I have a lot of questions about how well they do work, how well they're sold, how well they're promoted, how well the consumer who's involved in that loop is brought in to make sure that they're not, sold a bill of goods or whatever. So go, Kelly.
Well, thank you. Those were very kind words. And I absolutely agree with everything you said, that these types of systems and the goals of these systems should not be conflated or confused. However, the marketing, as you mentioned, can sometimes cause that confusion. And so we are here to try to dispel those myths and make sure that consumers are aware of what the systems can and cannot do, regardless of marketing.
Right. So, yes. Case in point here, this week, Kelly, you published an article with the headline, "Tesla's full self-driving capability falls short of its name." The subheadline says, "The $8,000 option doesn't make the car self-driving, though it does offer a host of advanced features." And you evaluated all of them. So this is exactly, I think, what we were just talking about. Is this a truth in advertising type of issue?
It could come down to truth in advertising. What we wanted to do is make sure that consumers that are potentially going to be purchasing these options are aware of what they can and cannot do. And there's a lot of misleading information out there. And so we wanted to be able to set the record straight in a very unbiased way, and not necessarily say that all these systems are bad or that you shouldn't get them, because if you want to be a beta tester and you want to spend the $8,000 for the self-driving package, then I'm not going to stop you, but I want you to know what you're getting into when you do it. So that's really where we were coming from on this. And just to go a little bit back on some background information, I think we all are very familiar with Tesla's use of the word autopilot for some of their advanced driver assistance systems. And so what we were talking about in this article that you mentioned we published recently is this kind of second level package of their driver assist systems. So this is their full self-driving package, and so it adds some unique features. And so we wanted to try them out and test them and see what they could do.
Yeah, and I think that's really good that you separate those things, because of course it's sort of somewhat bad enough that they called the first thing autopilot. Although if you look at an autopilot in an airplane, it really helps the pilot. Nobody's ever talked about the whole life of autopilots in airplanes removing the pilots. The pilots union would have a hissy fit if anybody even thought of that. So in some sense, some of that attack on that is okay. But then the self-driving, the whole self-driving thing is a whole whatever. I mean, of course, the key that's not brought out with any of the self-driving out there, it's not driverless. I like to differentiate the two. It's not driverless. You've got to be in there paying attention. The Society of Automotive Engineers, and I'll say it, just terribly put in this level 3 business, some that's in there, which is just horrible, because it implies that in fact you can just lay back and let the thing do it without being in there responsible, monitoring and realizing that that if things go bad, you're the one that's responsible, you're the one that's going to die, and you're the one that's going to have to pick up the tab. Nobody's out there saying that, hey, in level Tesla will pick up the tab if it crashes. Elon, I don't think, has ever said that, or maybe I'm wrong. So please, those two things need to be very well separated. There is no middle. There is no somehow, hey, yes, I'm going to be chauffeured and Elon's going to take care of me, and they shouldn't be allowed to market it that way. Go ahead.
That's very much aligned with my way of thinking as well. I think it's more of a spectrum of the capabilities and performance of these systems and how they're implemented in the vehicles, and not necessarily, this is the cutoff for this level and this is the cutoff for this level. And that's correct. I don't think the automakers are wanting to set themselves up for liability and to cover everyone's bill if they, if these systems are activated and there are many accidents. And it's actually very interesting when we talk about the Tesla features, is many of them are still to this day, even though they've been out for many years now, labeled as beta features. So there's extra confusion because some of these features, perhaps auto steer and others, not only have been out for quite a few years now, but also perform pretty well compared to what they claim they're supposed to do. So to call them beta, that's another conversation and it really just causes confusion.
Sure. Well, I like the fact that you say that some of the features do work pretty well. I think the lane centering features and the intelligent cruise control, or what I call intelligent cruise control, adaptive cruise control, I think your report does say that they do work pretty darn well, right? I mean, I'm not putting words in your mouth here, right? I mean, that is what you've come out.
That is true. Yes.
And I found that in the car that I bought in 2014, which is I bought just because it had that, I found the autos, the lane centering really helps me drive because it sort of leads me into the turn and I feel comfortable. And if I sort of sway a little bit, it keeps me in the road. It doesn't let me go to sleep in the back seat. It doesn't let me not be responsible. It just watches over me and helps me, which I think is really a good consumer thing, isn't it? Or isn't it? I mean, you agree, right?
I agree to an extent. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I think, we get reports that consumers want systems that are able to keep them pretty well centered in the lane. And we actually hear that systems, whether or not they're intentionally designed by the manufacturer to not keep them in the center and they ping pong or kind of let you depart, again, that could be an intentional design by an automaker to, play with this idea of keeping the driver in the loop. But what we find is
I don't believe that. I just believe their systems don't work. But go ahead. Anyway, yeah, it's not a design feature. Go ahead, whatever.
Exactly. So we find that people are just confused by these systems more than anything. They don't understand why it's not trying to keep them in the center of the lane. They don't understand why it's not performing well, kind of what you were just saying, it's not a very good system. When in fact, it's doing exactly what the manufacturer designed it to do. So that means, that this Tesla system really kind of
I think works pretty well, but it really has to work that way. I've always liked the GM system that had the eye tracker on there, so that if you don't pay attention, okay, if you don't behave in school when you used to go to school, then the teacher asks you to go to the corner of the room, sit on the thing, put a dunce cap on, it turns it off. Okay, you want to misbehave, you get to do it once, but that's it. To me, that's not a bad way for manufacturers to deal with this. We give you toys. As long as you work with them well, you can use them. You don't work you throw your toys around, hey, we'll put them away. Okay. I don't know. What thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I actually come a little bit from a different perspective.
Okay, fine, great. Yeah.
It's cognitive psychology, and rule number one of human factors is to never blame the user. And so my perspective is,
I thought that was number one of marketing. Wait a minute. Never blame the user. Come on. Of course.
Right.
I'm never wrong. Kelly, how did you know?
I mean, right. I didn't say you were wrong. I said I have a different perspective.
Yeah. Okay. No. Go ahead. Go.
Exactly.
Sorry.
So if you manufacture a product and you put a feature onto a vehicle that's mass produced and allow people to purchase and use the system, people are probably going to try to find out how to play with the system and break the system and take the system to the limit and see how they can misuse it.
I've never done that. Kelly, come on, cut it out.
And we like to team them, right? I get it. And so I actually really believe that there is a responsibility from a manufacturer, if they're going to put out a product for consumer use, that they need to have some safeguard in place to make sure that that product isn't misused and potentially become a safety issue. So let's go to the part where we agree again. So I agree that yes, there needs to be some sort of, if you're misusing this system, then, 1 time, 3 times, whatever it is, now you're out, right? 3 strikes, you're out. But they're also, what Tesla is really, really missing, and I think is the one thing they could do to immediately improve their system is to have driver monitoring in place. And so that is to make sure that the driver is engaged And that also kind of goes back to what we were talking about before with liability, is if you're going to put out a competent system and drivers may misuse it or over rely on it or fall asleep because it's working really well, it does a good job, then who's going to be responsible when something goes wrong, right?
Yeah,
And so
absolutely. It's the crux of the matter. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. So to make sure the driver is even awake, right?
Yeah. So, one of the things that I do when I give talks on this thing, I have this slide that I use to try to show this. And what the slide is it's in a grocery store, and it's a shopping cart that has one of these child seats in it with a steering wheel that exists, because bring your child to the grocery store, the child has to do things. And so you put your child in there, and the child is like turning steering wheels and doing whatever and so on. But behind the cart is a mother with her hand on that thing, making sure that sucker never hits anything. Mm-hmm. So the driver's in there, having a great time. Mm-hmm. Okay. But Tesla should be back there overseeing what is going on. Let you do whatever doesn't get you between the rock and a hard place. But if you start going towards the rock or the hard place, I mean, to me, that's the way these things should operate. And I think it's really the way you've suggested it operates. It says, hey, have fun, enjoy, drive, get some benefit out of this. You're working to make this damn vehicle go where it's supposed to go. I mean, you should get at least some pleasure out of it. Kelly, stay within some straight and narrow of this thing. Otherwise, I'm just going to make sure, which would be the beauty of this stuff if they really did that. And that's sort of what I say with respect to the GMs, at least they put the eye tracker on there to watch you. And Elon, why don't you just do that, okay?
You've got a camera in there looking at the driver already. Tell me if I'm following you, right?
I mean, come on, do that. And why do you want to just let the driver just do anything? Or why do you want to give him or her that perspective and so on? Come on. It's not only them, it's everybody else on the road too. And of course, automakers have a trouble because they're selling a product that they don't even want you to think that it's not safe in any way. I mean, oh my goodness, then you won't buy it. So of course they want to make, they really want that perspective out there on you. But come on, because you're not, in the end, you're not going to pick up the tab. You're going to say, oh no, written in whatever in some fine print someplace, You're responsible. And of course, if you tell them that too much, they won't buy it. One other, this is really your time, not mine, but one of my pet peeves right now is I've been looking for a 3-year-old car by a manufacturer that I won't mention. Why? Because they come on at a good time, that has these features on it that were available in 2007. They were available from 2014 for 3 years. Okay. I can't find a used vehicle with these capabilities on them because they didn't sell it. When they ordered their cars from wherever, they didn't order it with it. So when they showed up in the showroom, they didn't sell it. I can't find one with it. How do we get the OEMs? What is it? Is the name wrong with this thing because they're driver assistants? Somebody said, oh my goodness, we can't sell something that says driver assist. The driver, as you said, we're never do any wrong. I mean, we're so fabulous. I mean, whatever. We have the wrong name on this thing. We have the wrong folk. One of the things you said earlier, which I really liked, is that this is now available in all the cars, essentially in every showroom you go to, right? They're not really pushing it in the advertising. The salespeople aren't really selling it. And if it wasn't for Consumer Reports out there suggesting to people that, hey, some of these systems actually work. You should be out there. Why isn't insurance selling this stuff and saying, hey, this keeps you from crashing, therefore we get to keep more of the money. We're making money off this stuff if you buy it. Why aren't they out there?
That there's a lot to unpack with everything you said. So let's see if I
I'm
can
sorry.
So,
Go.
no,
I'm sorry
you
to,
go into, I think
go.
the things I want to hit on, yeah, are the naming and marketing of it, right? And are these safety systems, and are they making money, right? Those are kind of the big three things, and all of those have a lot of caveats to them. So first of all, several years ago, some insurance companies were giving credit for Subarus with eyesight and things like that, which
works very well. Eyesight, not to give them a commercial. It does work really well, right? You found
right.
that, right? Go ahead. Yeah.
Some features work well, exactly. And but then we learned that these systems are actually somewhat expensive to put on the cars. A lot of the sensors physically equipped on the cars are in the bumpers. So what was used to be a very cheap fix, you fix the bumper, which is what you're hitting first. Now you have to not only fix the sensor, but you have to get it recalibrated. And okay.
But if these systems work, it's not crash mitigation.
Okay, so
it's crash avoidance. Okay, so they don't crash. So so if they worked as advertised, as a super, well, damn it, manufacturer, make them work.
No, that's what I said. Just make a better system. I know, right? It seems so easy, but that's exactly where I'm going next. Is that these systems don't always work as expected or as promised, right?
So promise well and expect well. What?
So we find that consumers very much do want many of these features. There are some that they don't, but the ones, and we consider the safety systems, we don't consider lane centering or lane keeping a safety system. We don't consider adaptive cruise control a safety system, and we can get into that in a minute. It could be, there's potential, there's no data, so we don't. But blind spot warning, people love blind spot warning. It's non-intrusive, it helps them when they need it. It comes on only when they've engaged a turn signal, they're intentionally doing something, and it helps them so much. Automatic emergency braking, things like this. People are looking for those. And not so much these lane type of systems, because how they perform. Lane departure warning is a fun one. I tend to turn that off in almost every vehicle I get in, even though it's literally my job to test these systems. They're not very good. They're not very good. So why would I go out and ask for a system that is going to annoy me every time I get in my car? I'm just going to shut it off.
Okay,
because it's a better system.
Absolutely. So you should be telling the OEMs, don't give me a warning system. Okay, give me a system that won't let me depart. Unless it doesn't matter if I don't depart. If I depart,
well, I'm not going to go that far. I'm not going to go that far.
Why not?
Because the systems that don't let you do it aren't very good either. So
well, then you should say that, and you should say to them, make them good. There's no reason why they're not making them good. There's no reason why they're not making them good. Look, if you're going down the road, it's sensing what's ahead of you. Okay, it's also seeing whether or not there's anybody coming at you. Okay, and if they're not seeing what's coming at you, then they should be out of business. And therefore, if somebody's coming at you, then you shouldn't cross. Okay, and it should keep you from crossing. Okay, and the problem with the warning systems on the mirrors is that it warns you. If it knows that there's a car there you shouldn't go, it shouldn't let you go. Okay, or you should really have to say, oh no, I am king of the road, I know best, let me exercise my manhood and do it. Okay, they shouldn't. Come on, Consumer Report. I
am 100% on board.
Write it then, damn it. We're having fun. Okay.
In practice, the systems are, we're pretty far away from them actually being able to do what you just explained. There are many issues, and just to name a few, with being overly sensitive, right? So don't let me depart the lane. Okay, well, it interpreted something incorrectly, and I need to get over, and there's a potential safety issue if I don't, right? So that's potential
hazard. They have
hazard.
to do that. So therefore, why should they be allowed to have a product that isn't good enough to do that? Why should they only be able to go halfway? Look, some people say that being over here with these systems, we think we can have cars drive by themselves. Are they joking? Is anybody really serious? Most of those manufacturers that are over here think they can do vehicles over here. I mean, you can't do that. That's kindergarten. It's not even first grade.
Kelly,
okay? And then the other one, let me jump in. My pet peeve. Okay. I've got Kelly here.
Fred's really trying to get in. We'll go to him next.
No, but with respect to Tesla, okay, Joshua Brown, okay, dies in Florida, right? Why? I claim why is because the automated emergency braking system didn't work. Okay, the automated emergency braking system in essentially, I think all these vehicles. Again, this is me, and you don't have to. It says if I see a stationary object in my lane ahead, I disregard it. Okay. Why? Because most of the stationary objects that I see in my lane ahead are what? It's an overhead pass. It's a traffic light. It's an overhead tree. It's a sign. It's something I can pass under. Mm-hmm. Okay. And as I'm going down the road, you know, my radar is bouncing back all kinds of stuff. And all of a sudden I see something that bounces back for which I'm approaching at the same speed that I'm going. It's in the code. It's one of the simplest little things that you can test on. And it's disregard those things.
Well, I think it's not quite that simple. I think that there's a lot of interpretation that goes on, you know, if it's a shadow or not. Am I going to be conservative and hit the brakes every single time and then have too many false alerts, and which also can cause issues with people running into the back of you? Absolutely, right? So there are lots of issues here.
Yeah.
But computer vision cameras are not that good yet. So we need.
So they shouldn't be there then.
Cars is because the technology that we need for it potentially hasn't even been invented yet, and it's because we need so much more sensor fusion, right? So a camera, hot dog, not a hot dog, right? We know the classic. It's pretty hard to tell when there's different orientations of it, when it's a different version from a different country, right? All of those are issues. And my favorite thing is we have these CAPTCHAs, right, where we go on and prove that we're not a robot or prove that we're a human. Click.
Know where you're going.
Click all of the squares that have a stop sign. Click all the squares that have a car. Click all the squares.
We agree.
That proves that we're human because the computers can't do that. Yikes, right? We're still a little bit away.
Guess what? I can't do that either. I get it all wrong every damn time, okay? And those things drive me nuts.
A perfect system is what we're striving for, but we're not there yet.
Of course, we're very much not there. And therefore, it really needs to be emphasized that we're not there yet. It really needs to be emphasized that we're in the loop. You can't even think about not paying attention because these things do that. And for the exact
not only can you not think about it, but it's my opinion is that it is the manufacturer's responsibility if they're putting out a system that perhaps is competent and able enough to allow the driver to not pay attention. You need to put in a safeguard to make sure that they are in another way.
Well, you can't. You have to pay attention. You can't even. You can't suggest it. Okay,
absolutely.
Because they are not good enough. They don't. They turn it for exactly the reasons you said so. Because because the false alarm rate is too high. They haven't, you know, the quality of the system is proportional to the false alarm rate. And if your false alarm rate is anything that is anything, you know, it doesn't have to be absolutely zero. Okay.
Yeah.
I drive down the road and I think there's a car ahead of me and I hit the brake. Oh, there wasn't a car. Okay. So, you know, I do that. Okay. But
so
you know, it's got to be done. Yeah, go ahead.
With Tesla, they have one of the best displays out there, in my opinion, because they have a dynamic display that is showing what is going around the car and what the car is sensing and detecting, right? It sees another car in the lane, and that vehicle itself is dynamic. It's not just I see a car or not. It's I see a car and I see the car that is right here compared to right here, whatever. And this is much more like autopilot in planes, right? Because the pilots aren't just taking a nap. They're very much involved in the systems, and checking the calculations of the system against their own mental model and own training to see if the system sees it.
Beautiful.
And so that is hands down my favorite thing about the Tesla is their very good display, because if it doesn't see a car and I do see a car, I'm in the loop, I'm aware, I know that it might not see it, and I'm ready to take over, right? And so
you know that you need to be that, because you can see whenever and we applaud them for that. Okay,
absolutely.
We applaud. They should have more in there. Absolutely. Okay. But some of the things that they do, let's move on to some of the things that they do that I don't like, that you like or don't like. I mean, smart summon. I called it stupid summon when it first came. I mean, really, I want to treat my Tesla like a puppy dog. Puppy dog, come here, lick my feet. Yeah. I mean, come on. What is that all about? Really, I want to be at Costco in with my cart, and my car is going to come in front and run 3 people over as I mean, where does that stuff come from? Why? Look, the other ones, they now have automated parking. Okay. So it can squeeze your car into a parking spot. Okay. What do the 2 people on either side of you do to you when you squeeze your car in a parking spot? I mean, there was a commercial on the Super Bowl that Hyundai, I think, showed pulling in Boston. Do you know what the people on either side did to that car after it got pulled into there? I mean, what were the sides of that car like? Ba-ba-boom, ba-ba-boom. I mean, how dare you? I buy one of these new cars with all this stuff on it. I'm going to stick it out as far out in a parking lot, as far away from anybody that's not going to bang into it. Who comes up with this crap? I mean, I'm sorry. I don't know. I don't know if I wanted to. What?
Okay, so I think the idea of it is good, and the idea is long term.
No, it's not good. No, it's not. I won't even give the idea good. Go ahead.
I wanted to come in valet and pick me up with my groceries. It's raining, whatever. The idea is there. I get the idea. The implementation is not quite advanced yet, and I think that there are still some very edge cases where even the smart summon or even just regular summon are useful if you have a tight garage, right? You could fit it in your garage. So I personally would not use that in a shopping mall where there's 2 large vehicles. Like, I'm not going to.
I mean, come on, who's going to do it there? And, and if you're rich enough to buy one of these cars, what are you doing with such a small garage? But never mind, I won't even go there. I mean, it amazes me that these OEMs are there with this. I know from an engineering point of view, oh man, am I smart? Am I cute? I got this thing to do this. Okay. All right. This is STEM gone too far. Okay. I mean, you really look at it and you say to yourself, geez, why don't you get it so that in fact the cars don't crash? Why don't you go to making sure that the stuff over here really works well, and you can actually have it on and not have to worry about false alarms and so on. Please do that. And
exactly.
And my goodness, everybody will live longer. They'll pay less insurance, and everybody be happy. But for some reason, I don't know, they get into these cute things, and again, this is the same thing. I love the warning systems on the mirrors. But I really would like them to do more, because in case I'm, I have the radio playing too high or something, if it knows enough to beep to me, it should know enough to say, damn it, don't do it. It should be like that woman in the grocery store. I'm not going to run this cart into the shelving. Okay. I'm going to keep my child safe. I'm shopping, I'm doing other things, but I'm going to keep that child. I don't know.
I agree. And that's exactly my big picture on all of this stuff, is that time could be better spent perfecting some of the systems that they have out there that are kind of, the similar ones that are competing in the market for right now. Driver monitoring. I mean, come on, like, focus on that instead of karaoke and fart noises, right? Like, there's so much... The potential of improving the systems that have potential to be safety systems, right? Focus there. They would be so much further ahead.
I think from a consumer point of view, those are the things that not to try to speak for consumers, but those are the things that would do us a lot of good, as opposed to putting some fantasy in our mind about I mean, anyway, Fred.
we got a break for a second, but we're gonna continue on with this. First, we want to remind you about our sponsor, the Smart ETF, Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. You can get more info at motoetf.com. On the website, check out the white paper. It's called the Smart Transportation Revolution. It's under the Insights and News tab. Great information there to help you make informed investing decisions. Again, the site is motoetf.com. And we've got a lot more to talk about with you, Kelly. First of all, one of the things that we've talked about before is the lack of education for consumers. If they are buying these features, or if it comes standard, are the car makers and dealers pretty much ignoring the whole idea of telling people what this stuff can do, what it can't do?
That is a very great and complex question to answer. Yes, there is certainly more that could be done in terms of educating consumers. But what we've been focusing on recently is really trying to get manufacturers, dealers, and consumers speaking the same language to begin with. We can't even educate if we're using different terminology, different features. Maybe we're using the same terminology, but a different manufacturer uses that for a different feature, right? So we all have to get on the same page first there. So we've been working with AAA, National Safety Council, JD Power, SAE, PAVE. We have been working together to create a standardized glossary of these terms so that we can all start the process of education first by speaking the same language, which is helpful for manufacturers to be able to even sell these features, right? So if a consumer comes in and they know they want automatic emergency braking and blind spot warning that we were talking about, they want these safety features. They go in, if they call them some other strange name that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, they might not get a car with that system on there, and it may be an upgrade, which, you know, it should be standard on all cars, but right now they're not, and consumers should be able to get those. It helps everyone win. So that is the first step, is we need to speak the same language. And then number two is, yes, there could be more education, but right now, as all of these features are developing in tangent, some are implemented slightly differently, some have different nuances. Certain adaptive cruise controls only work at certain speeds, same with automatic emergency braking. They don't work at high speeds, low speeds, things like that. And so even when we do use the same word to talk about a feature, the capabilities don't match necessarily across the industry either. So
details matter.
Yeah, so many things.
Details matter in these things, right? Is what you're saying, and to educate everybody so that they know the details is a really tough job. So are you putting together, you know, or Consumer Reports want to put together, hey, this is what we think, and this is the performance, and this is, so someplace you have a way to be able to compare as a, you know, because NHTSA isn't doing that. I mean, their 5-star rating system doesn't even, never mind, we won't even go there. Why they didn't extend it to 10 stars? Never mind, we don't want to go there either.
Yes, we are. We're working on that. We're trying to, so we've created this glossary, and one of those partners I mentioned was SAE, who they write the standards for what a system should do, right? And we work with them regularly to try to create a cohesive taxonomy. So there are a lot of J documents out there and standards that do say this is what blind spot warning should do. And so now we're working on going into those documents and calling it blind spot warning instead of lane change assist or whatever else. So there's so much going on and so much confusion. But I do want to touch on, a lot of these systems can benefit from, going back to Tesla again, better displays in the car. tell the driver what the system is seeing and what the system is doing, and there's so much less they have to remember and learn, right? So if you can see on I turn on autopilot and now it's, put up these different color lanes, and I see, okay, there's a steering wheel symbol, okay, and it set my speed, and I understand more about what the system is doing, whether or not someone gave me a pamphlet and I read the owner's manual or looked it up on a website and maybe heard incorrectly about a different manufacturer, right? There's so much that can be done through the interface of a car to explain what these systems are doing that really kind of alleviate the need for so much consumer training.
Right, because I have this audio system that I paid $1 gazillion for. There should be a podcast or something in there that says, hey, in a way that I appreciate hearing, hey, this is how the damn system works and so on. And or if I misuse it, it might even come in, hey, Alan, look, however, they should know how to write that stuff so I don't just turn it off and never use it. They have all this opportunity. I spend all this time in the car. I now have all this stuff around me. Why aren't they doing it?
I don't know why they're not doing it. I think they really should. Again, invest time in that. It's very helpful. One of the best implementations that I've seen is GM created this menu where when you go and turn on these features or adjust the settings of them, in the infotainment display, it says you can have the steering wheel vibrate, and it shows a picture and a little GIF of what happens. And if you select that, the steering wheel vibrates. So you know what that option is.
What that's going to be right when you selected it. So it brings it into your, in your mind,
exactly.
Right?
You can do training so easily by just having the in-car experience be, more robust.
Right. And in fact, you're going to be in there. Now, maybe they don't have the time to show you that when they're selling it because it takes so much time. And of course, salesmen, they're interested in, the turnover is really important. They have 12 seconds to spend with you. That's all they have. Boom, they got to go on to the next customer. But at least
and I would argue that they shouldn't necessarily train you at that point either. Your mind is like, am I going to get, am I going to have to fight this guy on negotiating the price? Like that's what you're worried about.
Great point. Absolutely. Of course, exactly. That's not the way you want to do it. And maybe they should have it in their configurator when you go online and maybe go, although they're afraid to scare you away because they're dangling this little, toy in front of you and selling it, I can drive up the Great Wall with my, who knows how. Do you want to say anything about the way they sell this stuff to us, or you guys aren't?
Well, it's specifically Tesla, Kelly. Is there anything wrong with Elon Musk selling what amounts to a promise? You're going to pay us now for full self-driving, but it's not full self-driving now, which is what you're pointing out in the great article in Consumer Reports. But he's selling people a promise that here's the computer, our software is going to arrive, it's going to be updated automatically, and it will be full self-driving.
Yeah, I do think that there's somewhat of an issue of selling a promise and not getting a product right away, particularly if you pay a few $1,000s for something and then you get into an accident and the car's gone and you never even had that feature. Where does that money go? I think those are other issues that need to be addressed. But in terms of selling, the full self-driving package or the autopilot package, as long as they're explicit in saying what the consumer is purchasing, and that's why the motivation for why we assessed all these systems, we want to make sure that consumers know what they are getting and that they're not being sold a promise. And if you want to purchase that, absolutely. I understand completely, being a tech person, the desire to want to be a guinea pig and beta test and be the first to experience new technology and even help the market learn and grow, right? The technology is going to get better, and I'm all for that. As long as I'm aware that that's what I'm signing up for, I'm fine with it. So it's very much, there needs to be more clear communication.
And you did reach out to Tesla for comment on this article.
We certainly always reach out to the manufacturers, and I think there's I think they're aware of what they're doing, and we have a perspective, and we just want to make sure that consumers understand exactly what they're signing up for.
they got a lot of free advertising out of you and a lot of free advertising out of us. And in fact, I mean, in some sense, we're trying to put out the information that the consumer wants. It's certainly not all bad. And in fact, you know, what I took away from your article was the fact that, you know, you came out and that explicitly said, look, autopilot is pretty damn good. Okay, I think you said that. I don't think I'm putting words in your mouth. I think that's what it said. At least that's what I read when it said.
Has pros and cons, yeah.
And it said, look, the other thing, you're being sold a promise. And if you really listen to what Tesla says, they are selling you a promise and a hope. It seems as if the way they've set it up with the over-the-air updating, to me, is, as a consumer, to me, it seems what a wonderful concept. Because it seems to me as a consumer, the way that the car manufacturers have treated me in the past is they sell me a car, and as soon as I drive out of the showroom with that, the thing that they're trying to say, hey, boy, you bought crap, come in and buy another one. Okay, trade that one in and get another one. Okay, which, holy hell, you just told me this was great. Now you're telling me it's crap. I got to go in and get a new one. You know, of course, that's not what they said, but that's sort of the implication. Whereas with this over-the-air updating, I mean, it basically, to me, it says, look, we know we're not quite perfect yet, or at least I wish that this is what they were saying. We're not quite perfect yet. We think that what we have out there is pretty damn good for you. Go try it out, see how you can do. Help us out. We need your feedback to get it to work for you. In fact, we're watching them. What the hell? The data they must have in terms of the usability. I mean, I've been wanting them to release that so that we could all look at it and learn from it. I mean, that is just so damn valuable. And out of that, we're going to improve the product. And guess what? Instead of making you come in and buy a new one, we're gonna take yours and see how much it can eat of this, and we're going to give it, or I don't know if they charge you or whatever they end up charging or not charging, probably is, my goodness, thank you. No, I mean, am I missing something here or what?
Well, it's not unique to Tesla that there are over-the-air updates on things. And yeah, I agree that
it isn't unique. Who else does it? Really?
Many manufacturers do. Yes. So some of them you have to go to a dealer and the dealer can include it, and some you can do on your own. You know, to a much lesser degree, I think, than the examples we've seen from Tesla. But it's not unique, and I think we're going to see more of it. And I agree that it's a benefit to consumers. If there's a system that we find a flaw in, and instead of issuing a recall, we can send something over the air. Right? We know the adherence rate to getting recalls fixed is so low that boom, right?
Boom. So, I mean, isn't this good customer service? I mean, I think, I'm not going to mention my manufacturer, but in 2014, I'd taken that back to the dealer. Have they ever suggested, hey, we're going to upgrade your software and your system? Never. I'm stuck, and then whatever, I won't mention their name.
But much like other technologies and devices out there, software can only get you so far, and then you'll need new hardware at some point. But yeah, I agree that absolutely, if we can keep improving the software, and then we need bigger, more memory and things like that, which we see from Tesla. They have their hardware 1, 2, 2.5, 3. All of this stuff. We're seeing that as well. But in the meantime, we get these upgrades to help improve the software to the capability of the hardware. I think it's great.
But Kelly, what I tell my students or whatever is, I think that really the future is in the software, not necessarily the hardware. And if you're really good, you're going to become elegant with your software instead of brute forcing your software, and in fact make it work on the older hardware. And the amount of cycles you get out of a computer now. I mean, I guess because my class called me a boomer. I told them I'm not a boomer. I'm a pre-boomer. Damn it. I mean, how now they'll call me a boomer. Damn it. Whatever. But compared to where I've come from, I mean, you know, that footprint that exists in a car now, or getting close to existing, or the announcement by NVIDIA with Daimler and so on, the amount of teraflops that you can put in these suckers, and the amount of memory that you now have. In fact, if we can get more elegant in the software. And that means that this whole concept of over the air, making this really allowing the vehicle, which is now, I mean, it's not so much a mechanical thing, it's it's a computer. I mean, if you look at the real advances that are going to take place with these things, it's really having to do with the software. And the more elegant we get, we can do this over the air. Now, of course, the manufacturers don't like it because, damn it, we're not going to go in there and buy a new one or something. I don't know what they're.
And then along comes Battery Day, which you mentioned in the upcoming Smart Driving Car newsletter coming up this month. And then everybody's going to say, geez, my battery's not that good in my Tesla. So.
Right. I absolutely agree. Software can be improved to a huge extent, but I still think that there are hardware
of course,
implementations that will, you know, say if you only have a vision camera on your car, and then now you want to add a radar, that's hardware, right? You can't just make the vision camera become a radar. Or now I want to add a thermal imaging camera to help AEB, you know, that's hardware. So yes, agree. I think that's
no, I don't agree, because we do pretty well with our eyes, and I don't have a radar or a LiDAR or whatever, you know, right here. And damn it, if I improve the stuff that's going on in my visual cortex, never. No, go ahead.
I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think some of the research that's come out recently from AAA and others is showing how well these systems work for automatic emergency braking. The camera systems alone, you know, may not detect as much as a camera plus a radar. And what if you add thermal imaging, right? So you can't see either through radar or camera the child that's in front of the car, but maybe through thermal you can, right? So if you have all of the sensors in the world on your car, absolutely, then it's just software. But we're going to keep developing more sensors.
Yeah, no, I certainly, you know, the guys and gals that sell us radars, or especially the guys and gals that sell LiDARs, which we're finding are doing so well these days. I don't know. Again, I don't have a LiDAR. If she thought that I really needed one, she would have put one right here and whatever. My students hate me when I say that.
They didn't give you a good night vision camera there either.
No, I'm really bad. I don't know how many deer I've hit in my life, but more than a few. Yeah. And you know, I can't see them coming anyway.
Yeah, well, we're going to be wrapping things up. We do want to point out in the latest newsletter, though, Alan, there's a report from ARS Technica, Timothy Lee, which has a headline, LiDAR is becoming a real business.
Yeah.
And they talk about several companies and increasing sales. So,
yeah.
And I think even beyond vehicles. So
yeah, it's beyond vehicles. I mean, you know, the good thing about LiDAR is it returns for each pixel a distance. Okay. And, you know, and that distance is relatively accurate. So if you really want to know how far something is from you, you know, bounce that. Radar does it okay, but not as well. And and so on. And it's been a competition of trying to get the performances we discussed before. You know, it's a distribution of answers that you get. If they're not tight, so that you don't have the either errors down here, errors up here, false alarms up here, false alarms down there. If you're tight, then it's good. I mean, that's sort of the fundamentals of all these things. And it seems as if, you know, LiDAR has come a long way since the DARPA challenge, which is, you know, 15 years, you know, almost to the day, at least the 2005 one. So it's taken a while, but it's gotten there, and some folks are doing some really good work with that.
Well, Kelly, we really appreciate you taking the time with us, and congratulations on the work that you're doing there. And we want to steer our listeners to consumerreports.org, I think is the site.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Start reading. Good stuff.
It is good, and it is focused on the right folks. The folks that actually make all this stuff really happen is the people who are going to use it. It's one thing to develop this stuff, put it on a shelf, and it gets forgotten. What we do in academia so very well. It's so depressing. We really need to get this so that it provides the value to the customer who's paying for it. And the value here, on the one hand, is really to keep us from crashing. And I claim the reason we crash is we misbehave there. We sort of, get too much into ourselves, or we, who knows what. And this technology I believe, can really help us there. Enormous social value. And then there's, of course, the technology over here that, in fact, it's focused purely on mobility, purely on getting people to work, to go get their hair cut, to go to church, go to synagogue, go to whatever, go to child, go to soccer practice or whatever. And it's a whole different business. A lot of the technologies. That's kind of where I come from, and I think we're in agreement. It's nice to see Consumer Reports. I've of course consumed Consumer Reports as a pre-boomer, of course. We wouldn't think of looking at anything else.
It's great to hear, and I agree with you. We're all striving to improve everybody's lives, the lives of society, and we're here to make sure that it's done in a safe way.
Yeah, we thank you for that. Thank you, Kelly.
Well, thank you very much. I enjoyed this.
And thank you to our sponsor, the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF. The ticker symbol for the ETF is MOTO, and more information is available at motoetf.com. You can find us at smartdrivingcar.com, also on Anchor FM, Spotify, TuneIn, Apple, Google, Spreaker, SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcasts. You can ask your smart speaker to play us too, and you can find my tech reports at techstination.com. I'm Fred Fishkin along with Alan Kornhauser. Thank you for listening or watching, and please stay safe.
Thank you, Kelly. That's very nice. Thank you.